welcome. Listen, okay, today's topic is heavy. We're talking murder, abuse, stalking. This is a trigger warning, okay? If you're not into this heavy stuff, totally understand. I'll catch you next week, all right? If you're into it, or you know about this murder and you want to know the updates, I'm your gal, okay? Let's talk about it. If you're new here, my name is Leeja. I'm a lawyer and I'm on a mission to demystify the law and how it affects your everyday life. And I do that sometimes by looking at true crime and kind of dissecting the legal aspects of it, but also telling the story, hopefully as authentically as possible. I wanted to tell this story specifically from my experience working with victims of domestic abuse and representing them in court. That's where I'm coming from. I'm not unbiased, but I feel like in this story, it's really hard to take sides, and I want to explain why and the nuances behind it, okay? So if you're unfamiliar, let's talk about it. OnlyFans creator and Instagram model, which I think just means you're pretty and you post pictures of yourself on the internet. She was also a fitness model as well. Her name is 𝗦𝗘𝗥𝗩𝗖𝗧𝗦. She goes by Courtney Taylor on social media. She's set to stand trial on December 19th for the murder of her on and off again boyfriend, Christian Obumseli, back in April of this year. She stabbed him 3 inches deep into the chest with a serrated knife. She's claiming self-defense. His family wants justice. I want to talk about why this case is so controversial and give my perspective as someone who frequently works with victims of abuse. Let's roll that intro. All right, let's start just from the beginning, all of the facts that we know and that have come out as we've been going, all right? Let me thank the sponsor of today's video, Factor. When I'm busy delving into research to bring you videos like this, I don't have time to cook. Ew. Factor makes meeting your nutrition goals easier than ever by providing fresh, never frozen meals straight to your door. And my friends, this is not your grandma's TV dinner, okay? Factor is fresh and it's genuinely really good. There's a reason why I keep working with them. It's because I want to keep eating this food. I love that there is no prep and no mess to clean up afterwards because y'all, I'm a busy person and I don't particularly like to cook. Factor meals arrive pre-prepared and ready to eat in 2 minutes. So I get to eat food that I know is fresh, but also Factor provides a weekly menu of over 25 different items to choose from, so I'll never get bored. For example, I really loved this stuffed pepper casserole that I tried recently, though you would call it a hot dish in my neck of the woods.
Factor now offers 34 meals per week and 36 plus add-on options like smoothies, juices, snacks, and more, so that I can keep going no matter what I have going on.
They have a variety of meal plans to choose from, but I personally appreciate that they don't skimp on the calories, all right? I am a thick-cut German girl. 250 calories is not gonna cut it for me. I need a real meal, and Factor delivers. But I also know they're healthy at the same time. You see what I mean? Factor is now owned by HelloFresh, and with both brands, I get to enjoy both being able to create meals at home easily and heat up meals on the go from Factor. Love this for me.
Head to go.factor75.com/Leeja60 and use code Leeja60 to get 60% off your first Factor box.
Thanks, Factor. I'm gonna call them Courtney and Christian. Makes them a little more human than using their last names. So Courtney and Christian started dating in 2020 in Austin, Texas. They're both from Texas. He was 27, she's 26. She's, like I said, a former bikini competitor turned fitness model, turned Instagram model, turned OnlyFans model. The Instagram to OnlyFans pipeline is strong, okay, and she was on it. He was a crypto investor, whatever the fuck that means. Anyway, they moved together from Texas to Florida in January of 2022 to a luxury apartment building in Miami called 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏. How do you say that in like 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 more problems. Neighbors as far as 2 floors above them would put in noise complaints from their constant fighting, and the cops were called as many as 6 times in the very short period that they lived in this building. They were behind on rent payments by tens of thousands of dollars, I assume, if it's $10,000 a month, and in the process of being evicted because of all of this disturbance. Friends say that they were violent to each other. Some say he was violent to her. Some say she was the aggressor. They were constantly breaking up and getting back together. And this tumultuous relationship culminated on April 3rd, 2022. What happened that day has been pretty well established at this point in terms of the timing. Christian was at the apartment that day. He left around 1:15 p.m. He received a call from Courtney at 4:01 p.m. and came back to the apartment at 4:32 p.m. with Subway sandwiches for them. Then at 4:43, so about 10 minutes later, Courtney called her mom, who said that she heard Courtney yelling at Christian, telling him to leave, and accusing him of lying. Sometime between 4:43 and 4:56, Courtney took a serrated knife, probably the one that they were using to cut the sandwiches, because serrated seems strangely specific, but that's just me guessing, and she plunged it 3 inches into Christian's chest, severing a major artery. By that time, neighbors had reported a disturbance to the building security, who had called the cops at 4:46. Courtney didn't end up calling the cops until 4:57, and the cops arrived 6 minutes later to find her holding Christian in her arms on the floor, covered in his blood. Like, covered in it. In her initial statement, she claimed that they had been fighting. He had grabbed her by the neck, threw her against the wall and then to the ground, and then she had taken the knife and threw it at him from 10 feet away. Also, at the time of her questioning immediately after the killing, she made the statement, and I quote, "I really don't know if this was justified at all." Girl, do not talk to the police. Don't talk to the police. Don't talk to the police. Holy shit. If you have cops questioning you, you say, "I would like to speak to my attorney and I will not talk to you until I've seen my attorney." Even if you don't have an attorney, you say that. "I want a lawyer present and I'm not talking to you until there's a lawyer present." Because you have that right, but you have to invoke that right. You have to say, "I need a lawyer, I'm not talking to you." And then they have to stop talking to you and let you get a lawyer. Don't say shit like that. She said, "I really don't know if this was justified at all." And it's on written record from the cops. I guarantee you that's gonna come up a lot during the trial. Because she's claiming self-defense. And if she said herself, right after the murder, "I really don't know if this was justified at all," boy howdy, that looks bad. Whether or not she meant it or would agree with that statement now, because when you're in shock and you are in fight or flight, you might say some dumb shit that you don't mean or that you don't even remember saying. Doesn't matter. There's a written statement now, and it looks fucking bad. Jesus Christ. All right. At that point, the cops said that the investigation was ongoing, but they did not arrest her. I think due to her self-defense claim. I'm honestly not really sure why they didn't immediately arrest her, because she did admit to killing him. She did kill him. So I don't know. They didn't arrest her. And then 5 days later, she was seen out having drinks with her father. Not like getting drunk, but like sitting down and having drinks with him out in public, which was a bad look. I saw someone like took video of them and like ran them out of the restaurant being like, "You killed your boyfriend 5 days ago. What are you doing here?"
I'll videotape her. Right now, yeah, you should go. Yeah, you should go. Because you just killed your boyfriend. Yeah, you did. Yeah, and yeah. Yeah, okay, cool.
Innocent until proven guilty, yes, but she did admit to killing him and then was out to drinks. It doesn't look good. We got a lot of shit that does not look good, okay? Eventually, she went to a rehab facility in Hawaii to work on getting sober, because apparently that was something she was struggling with, and to work through her PTSD. Christian's family, for their part, they want justice, and they want her to be brought to justice. They actually went on Dr. Phil in May, so like a month after the murder, because Dr. Phil loves to exploit people for the clicks and the views. You could say that about anyone who makes content, I guess, touche, but they went on it and to tell their story, I guess. After that, the autopsy is released, and it again doesn't look great for Courtney. It says that it's very unlikely that the blade that entered him could have been thrown at him, because it was plunged 3 inches in at a downward force. If she did throw it and it somehow managed to, that's some Kill Bill Volume 2 shit, you know what I mean? Seems highly unlikely. The coroner said it seems as though the blade was plunged in a downward fashion 3 inches into his chest. So once this was released and they realized that her story afterwards wasn't really making sense, the investigation ramps up, okay? Christian's family hires a lawyer who then pressures the state attorney to arrest her, and then they do arrest her. They go to Hawaii and they arrest her where she is in rehab. This arrest happened in August, and there had been a lot of drama surrounding this whole murder because it was so public and so talked about and interesting because she's this like famous OnlyFans model, famous, whatever that means when you're an OnlyFans model on Instagram. So people have been talking about it. And so the state attorney had a press release to announce that she had been arrested. And they also released a video clip of her and Christian having an altercation in an elevator in the building where they lived together in February, so a couple months before the murder happened. I don't know. I mean, you can argue it either way. I'm not a fan of them releasing the footage because I feel like they are tainting the potential jury pool by putting out this very inflammatory footage right away. However, it is very common for lawyers to use the media and press conferences to bolster their side, to use the court of public opinion to sway a trial. This is common. I think it was a little tacky, personally. Okay, so if you look at the footage, we're not going to show all of it, but just to give you an idea of what's in there, Courtney comes into the elevator. She's trying to press the buttons. I think it looks like to get away from him. It won't close. He comes in. She starts pushing him. She pulls his hair. She's getting violent. He pushes her back. A lot of people interpreted this video to look like she was the aggressor, and certainly like she is being aggressive towards him and using physical violence towards him. I'm not saying that she's not, and like, that's not okay. Let's clear that out. I will say though, this looks like a couple that is used to doing this. Like, this doesn't look like, okay, I've never been in a physically abusive relationship. If someone that I was dating pushed me, I would be shocked. I would be upset. I would cry probably. There would be a lot of shock and horror that they're not exhibiting in this video in a way that tells me that they've been doing this a lot, that this is a common occurrence in their relationship. And as much as she is being aggressive towards him and pushing him around, he is pushing her around. And at one point, it's hard to tell, but if you zoom in on his face, it looks like he's smiling as though he's taunting her a little bit. And he looks very comfortable pushing this woman around. Let's say that. So people are looking at this video saying it definitively proves that she was the aggressor. I don't know that it does that. It definitively proves that they had a very toxic and abusive relationship. That's what it proves, because this looks like it was another day, just another time that they're doing this in their relationship. But it does show that she did fight back. Okay? Whether or not that's good for her case is yet to be determined. And so once she was arrested, then discovery happens. Discovery is when the parties exchange information, documents, videos, etc. before you get to trial. And a lot of new shit has come to light during this arrest and discovery phase. So the warrant for her arrest was released, and it revealed that she had previously been arrested for domestic abuse against Christian in Las Vegas. At that time, she admitted to throwing a glass at him, at his head, and admitted to throwing things at him frequently. Okay? Doesn't look good. Doesn't look good. I will say that abusers do sometimes use calling the cops on their abusee, the person they're abusing, as a means of further controlling them, further antagonizing them, and then using their new criminal status against them once they've been arrested because they were fighting back and it happened that the abuser got the right evidence to make it seem like they were the one being abused. This is not outlandish. This is stuff that happens, okay? I'm not making this shit up. However, it doesn't always happen, and men can be abused. And so, again, inconclusive, but doesn't look good. I think that's going to be the theme of this trial. Prosecutors are also claiming that there is no evidence that on the night of the murder that she was injured in any way. Remember, she claimed that he grabbed her by the throat, threw her against the wall, and then onto the floor. Her attorney says that he has photos of her injuries, so that appears to be up for debate still. But again, wouldn't look good if she had absolutely no scratch, bruise, nothing when claiming that he had attacked her first. That being said, you can be attacked and fear for your life without sustaining visible wounds. Again, inconclusive, but doesn't look good. And then video came out that someone had taken from across the street through the patio door, through Courtney's patio door immediately after the murder, showing her talking to the cops on the ground, covered head to toe in blood. And her dogs are kind of walking around, which kind of broke my, I mean, this whole story breaks your heart. But you know when dogs are involved and it's like sadder somehow. The dogs were just kind of like wandering around. You could hear them barking in the background of the 911 call that she made, which I'm not going to play here because that's something that you got to specifically want to listen to and you can seek that out on your own. But some people were claiming like she was kissing her dogs and seemed like casual. The way I watched it as a dog owner is like, I'm trying to comfort my dogs who are clearly in distress, and I'm also seeking emotional comfort because I'm just in shock and have no idea what else to do. I don't know. Like I said, there's a lot of shit that's arguable either way in this, all right? But it doesn't look good. But then on the other side, people have dug up old tweets that Christian posted years ago in which he repeatedly disparaged Black people, specifically Black women. He is a Black man, just so we're clear. And that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with like the murder trial. It's just another talking point, another area of dispute that people are talking about online. So I wanted to note that, with some people saying like, you always wanted to date a white woman, be careful what you wish for. And then most recently, body cam footage was released from the night of April 1st, so just 2 days before the killing, when cops were called to the apartment for a disturbance. In the video, you can see an employee saying that Christian was there. He was sitting around in the lobby. He wouldn't leave. And when she came down in the elevator, he charged at her, and the employee got in between them because he was afraid that Christian was going to hurt Courtney.
We get down here to the lobby area, her boyfriend comes charging towards her, and we actually try to get in the middle of it. So I told Artisha to go get the keys so she can go back into her unit.
She talks to the cops. She said that he was stalking her, following her around. He was sleeping outside of her apartment. She was afraid to leave the house with her dogs, and that she was in fear of Christian. While she's talking, she's really quickly vacillating between anger and fear and panic and sadness and crying, and she has her dad on the phone at the same time, and it's clearly chaotic. The police say that at the time it appeared that she was intoxicated, which frankly I think is a reach. I watched the 20 minutes of this body cam footage, and frankly I found the cops to be incredibly condescending to her in a way that it makes sense that she got frustrated with them, okay? I have also personally dealt with clients who are angry and who don't feel heard because the system isn't working in their favor, because the system never works in people's favor, and they're mad and they need an outlet and they don't feel heard, and so they act irrationally or erratically, or I'm their attorney who's trying to help them pro bono for free and they're screaming at me, but I know that it's because they're mad at the system and I am a arm of the system. And then they calm down and we move on, but it's something that happens really frequently with victims of domestic violence that I have worked with personally. And she kept asking to be heard during the encounter, and like, not to get too political, but fuck the police, okay? These cops were being so rude, so condescending. They wrote her off. They spoke to her differently than they were speaking to the male employee that they were talking to. During the encounter, she clearly articulated, I am a victim here and I need a restraining order against Christian.
I want a restraining order against Christian 𝗦𝗖𝗘𝗦.
We don't issue those.
No, I'm serious.
To the courts.
Can I do that? Where
you have
can
to go
I
to court. You have to go to
Okay,
downtown.
but how can I make myself first? Because I know him and he would do it. How can I make myself first?
You got to get there first.
175 Northwest First Avenue.
Before
175 Northwest.
Is he already on the way?
we have no idea. We don't even know how it looks like.
We don't even know who he is. How do we know that?
And they flippantly were like, we don't do that. We can't do that. The court has to do that. You're gonna go to court. Without like explaining the process to her clearly. And speaking in such a condescending tone that I would have also lost my fucking mind, all right? And then to that, she very coherently said, what should I do in the meantime to protect myself? Because it was a Friday night and the courts were closed until Monday morning, so she couldn't go and get that restraining order for a couple days. And she said, what do I do to protect myself?
So what can I do to be safe now? For my two dogs and I, what can I do?
Okay, explain to me why you don't feel safe.
I'm not comfortable.
Explain to me why you don't feel safe.
And the cops offered her absolutely no answer, no help, no advice about like finding a shelter, staying with friends, creating a safety plan, the basic shit that you do when you have a person in distress during a domestic violence situation. They offered none of that help. They provided a woman with nothing after she said, "I am fearful and I need help," and after the front desk guy at her building said, "I saw this man charge at her and was so worried that he was gonna hurt her that I got physically in between them and called the cops." And even after she made credible claims that he was stalking her, okay? These cops spoke to her like she was a child who was just being frantic and unreasonable. It was maddening to watch. Yes, she was acting irrationally, but that is to be expected from someone who is in a state of shock, of fear, who's being abused. Like, they need to know how to handle this. And the way that they spoke to her about the law after what, like 16 hours of training and then being handed a gun and told, like, go nuts. The condescending way that they kind of lorded their knowledge of the law over her. Ooh. That shit makes my blood boil. Okay, so that's the latest thing that's come out. That's pretty much everything that's come up so far, and there have been hearings on evidence issues during which the judge has ruled that the prosecution will be allowed to enter that video of them in the elevator together into evidence. I assume they're going to be using it to show a pattern of behavior on Courtney's part, meaning this is evidence of a pattern of abusive behavior that culminated in her murder of Christian. Though, like I said, it's going to be hard to find an untainted jury given how public this is, given that prosecutors literally showed that video of the elevator scene to everyone. So she is being tried for second-degree murder with a weapon, and she pled not guilty because she says that she was defending herself. Here's what the Florida statute for second-degree murder says. It says, "The unlawful killing of a human being when perpetrated by any act imminently dangerous to another and evincing a depraved mind regardless of human life, although without any premeditated design to effect the death of any particular individual, is murder in the second degree and constitutes a felony of the first degree, punishable by imprisonment for a term of years not exceeding life." Okay, so this is, she didn't plan this. This is not premeditated murder, but she did do this act with a depraved mind, they say, disregarding the sanctity of human life, or whatever the wording is. And this, if found guilty, could lead to an imprisonment of up to life in prison. That's what that said. So again, she's claiming that she's not guilty of his murder because she was acting in self-defense. In Florida, this is what the self-defense statute says. A person is justified in using or threatening to use deadly force if he or she reasonably believes that using or threatening to use such force is necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm to himself or herself or another, or to prevent the imminent commission of a forcible felony. A person who uses or threatens to use deadly force in accordance with this subsection does not have a duty to retreat and has the right to stand his or her ground if the person using or threatening to use the deadly force is not engaged in a criminal activity and is in a place where he or she has a right to be. So you might recognize some of that language. That is also where the stand your ground law in Florida comes from. So this is the self-defense statute. This is what she has to prove in her claims in court, that she believed that there was imminent danger of death or severe bodily harm, and that she needed to use this deadly force in order to protect herself from that. The issue with the self-defense claim is that, first of all, she has to prove that there was an imminent threat, and this is hard because it was just her and Christian in that room, all right? I assume her mother is going to be a key witness. I don't know yet, though. And they're gonna have to prove that the force that she used was reasonable under the circumstances, because the thing with self-defense is that your self-defense has to be equal to the threat. So if he's coming at her to strangle her, he's got his arms around her neck and she plunges, yeah, that makes sense because she was actively afraid he was going to kill her. That makes sense. But if someone's just like unarmed and walking towards you and then you put 27 bullets in their chest, a little uneven, all right? Unless you're a cop, am I right? So we'll see, though, because we don't know in this situation whether it was justified or not and what was happening during the moments leading up to his death. Okay, so that's what we know. That's what you need to know leading up to this trial, which again starts December 19th. But let's talk about why this case is so controversial. First, I mean, just in the most basic sense, you have a beautiful Instagram model slash OnlyFans creator. So it's not expected. It's really scandalous due to just her profession. And also it's really clickbaity to be able to say like OnlyFans star murdered boyfriend, you know? So it just makes a splash in and of itself. Second, you have the issue of race. It's a white woman who killed a black man. Christian's family is saying that Courtney is getting special treatment because she's a wealthy white woman. And frankly, I think that's fair. I don't think it's unfounded given how our judicial system works. Though I will say I haven't seen examples in the lead up to the trial of like the judge being partial to her, for example. He let in the elevator footage, which is really prejudicial to her. You know, like it doesn't seem like the judge is being partial to her, but I think mainly their complaint was that it took 4 months for her to be arrested. Meanwhile, she's out in Hawaii relaxing, having a good time. Again, doesn't look great. Okay? And not to get in too deep, but there is a history of black male death at the hands or at the fault of white women. I'm thinking, for example, of Emmett Till, whose brutal murder, after being accused of offending a white woman, is still one of the darkest stains on this country's history from that era. But also, you have this common trope in movies, in fiction, including in To Kill a Mockingbird, of the black man as a savage, terrifying predator who is specifically seeking out helpless victims to corrupt, specifically white women. So these accusations by Christian's family have basis in fact and history. Okay, so you've got race as another element that makes this such a controversial case, but then you also have the Depp v. Heard dilemma. Who abused whomst? You know? I tend to always believe women. However, men can also be victims of domestic violence as well. My instinct is to always believe women, but I'm not sure in this instance who to believe. When I'm looking at instances of domestic abuse or claimed domestic abuse or relationship abuse, I examine them, and a lot of practitioners examine them, through the lens of the Wheel of Power and Control, which is a helpful tool that was developed in Duluth, Minnesota, that is still used by practitioners today. It's what I was trained in on when I began working with domestic violence survivors like 5 years ago. And it looks at the balance of power within the couple to kind of help identify areas where abuse can occur that maybe aren't obvious, because a lot of abuse isn't just physical. You know, it can include race, it includes gender, it includes immigration status, criminal status, wealth, physical differences. So I look at these elements and I look at the issue in question and I say, you know, where is the power balance in this couple? Here, it appears that they were both independently wealthy. She seemed to be very successful on OnlyFans. He was a crypto investor, which I assume means you're wealthy. She was a woman, yes, but she was white. He was a man. Yes, but he's black. And neither had an immigration status that the other could use to control. She is like super fit and strong. Remember, she used to be a bikini model, and you don't just lose those muscles. But he's also larger than her. Not by a huge amount, though. It's not like he's 6'4" and she's 5'2", based on the pictures I've seen of them together. But in that elevator video, it looked like he could pretty easily push her around and overpower her. I mean, he had her in like a headlock at one point. But she overpowered him enough to literally stab him. All right? There's the arrest in Vegas and her admitting to throwing things at him, but then there's the body cam footage of her asking for a restraining order and seeming afraid for her safety. And while looking up the information for this case, I saw a lot of comment sections of a lot of people making snap judgments, saying she's guilty, she'll probably get let off easy, she deserves life in prison, she's a monster, she was clearly the abuser. Frankly, I think jumping to that type of conclusion at this point is a really uneducated view, because life doesn't work like that. Life is not black and white, especially where relationship violence happens. It is now up to each side to present their case, and the jury is going to have to decide whether or not the deadly force that she used was reasonable under the circumstances. And those circumstances happened between her and a now deceased man who can't tell his side of the story, and no one else was present to witness the lead up to this violence. So at this point, it doesn't look good for her. I'll give you that. But I don't think running to the snap judgment that she was the aggressor or she was the sole aggressor is necessarily the right way to go. It's also not necessarily the right way to go to say that if a woman kills a man, that she was always the abuser. Even if that killing wasn't in self-defense. I don't know if that's the case here though, but like there are numerous examples throughout history of women killing their abusers not in acts of self-defense, but out of who knows what. Sometimes vengeance, but also sometimes just from being incredibly traumatized and it being kind of like a mental break, a last resort, something that happens. It was a horrible thing, and I'm not saying what she did was right, and I'm not defending her in any way, shape, or form. All right? Don't murder your partners, okay? But at the same time, I think this is a lot more complex than the people in the comments section and the internet are making it out to be. So I hope that this video has helped educate you a little bit more on the complexities of this case, and we'll see how it unfolds starting next month on December 19th. Comment down below if you want kind of more of a blow-by-blow of the trial as it unfolds. I didn't check. I'm not sure if it's going to be televised or not, but either way, I'm happy to post updates if that's something you guys are interested in. Also, if you're interested in me doing more of this kind of true crime related stuff, comment that down below. It's really helpful to know that if that's something you're interested in. I find it to be something that I enjoy doing if there's something interesting in the legal aspect of it, or if there's like other commentary I can make, like in this case where we're kind of unraveling a onion of layers of how this case is complicated. I like those types of cases. So if you want to see more from me, comment below, comment one that you want me to cover next, and I'm happy to do that. Thank you once again to my partner on today's video, Factor.
Reminder to head to go.factor75.com/Leeja60 and use code Leeja60 to get 60% off your first Factor box.
Thanks, Factor. Thank you for being here. If you enjoyed this and want to support my work bringing you videos like this, please consider becoming a member of this channel or joining me over on Patreon, where we have a lively Discord chat, Leeja's book club, behind the scenes stuff, and so much more. Thank you especially to my newest Patreon supporters, 𝗟𝗡𝗏, Pinklisha, Ginger Probs, and Nyx Vicious. And as always, thank you to my royal patrons, Old Man Pence, Fork McSpoon, LNL, Daniel Taylor, and Leeja. And a very special thank you to my multi-platinum patrons, Brett Piontek and Cyrus Solka. Your generosity is greatly appreciated, and it makes this channel what it is. So thank you. If you liked this video, you might also like this video about the Darrell Brooks trial and why people are allowed to represent themselves in the first place. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good day. Bye-bye.